Welcome to the Wellness in Every Season podcast, where we embark on a transformative journey towards achieving total wellness, even in the midst of overwhelming moments. I am your host, Autumn Carter, and I'm thrilled to have you here. This podcast is a sanctuary for all mothers out there, and we extend a warm invitation to anyone seeking guidance and inspiration. We believe in fostering an inclusive community where we learn and grow together, supporting each other during life's challenging transitions. Join us as we step out of survival mode and discover the path to thriving, embracing wellness in every season of motherhood. From sleepless nights to new beginnings, we'll explore practical strategies, share heartfelt stories, and uncover the transformative power of self-care and self-love. Together, we'll unlock the wisdom, strength, and resilience within ourselves, reminding one another that we're never alone on this beautiful yet demanding journey. It's time to prioritize your well-being and reclaim your joy, one season at a time. Hello, welcome to Wellness in Every Season. Today I have with me Karla Levit, and she is going to be talking with us about pregnancy, miscarriage, PTSD, everything that happens with these childbearing years that can go wrong and everything in between and so much more. So please continue listening to hear what she has to say, and I will let her further introduce herself.
Hi, well, thank you for having me, and thanks for providing a space for us to talk about this, because I know that a lot of us suffer in silence. It's a bit of a taboo subject. So thank you for providing the space for us. So my name is Karla Levit. I am a mom of 2 rainbow babies. And I spent 20 years of my life in finance working on Wall Street. And about a year ago, I took a leap of faith to follow my soul's path. And I became a certified health and wellness coach with a focus on pregnancy. And the reason why I think I'm so passionate about this is because I've lived through this life for the past decade or so. My path to motherhood wasn't the traditional one that you would think. I met my husband, who I love dearly. We got married and we wanted to start a family. And there was nothing more that I wanted than to be a mom. I was never really sure about what I wanted to do, but be a mom, 100% knew that. And our first pregnancy ended tragically. Our daughter, Paloma, was born still at 23 weeks, and it was tragic. It was painful, and we're still dealing with the repercussions of it 9 years later. My story has a happy ending, and I realize that some people don't have that happy ending. I'm grateful that I have my 2 living children, but I really want to use this time to help women process the trauma and break the silence of pregnancy loss and stillborn. And as you mentioned, PTSD, which is what I suffer through as well, even 9 years later.
It's something that is super common and still not talked about enough. For me, it's hard for me to talk about. It's a lot easier now because it was so painful. It was easier just to ignore it and pretend it wasn't there. But it's something that does need to be discussed when we are ready for it, because we'll find such a connection. I feel like it's like I'm discovering with breast cancer. Breast cancer is super common, right? And if I mention it, other people are like, I know this person. It's the same thing with fertility issues. I had fertility issues for my first 2, and then I had, surprise, third child, 5th pregnancy. Anyway, and then the one after that, to even out my numbers, it took just like 3 months of trying. It was so different from the 2 years of trying that it took with my other one, and 2 years with my other child, and 2 miscarriages. And we'd been married for 5 years before we had our first child. And it sounds like you were married for a while as well.
Actually, it was like our honeymoon baby, our first pregnancy. So we were we knew we wanted to have a family, but it happened so quickly. And then, at 23 weeks, it ended so tragically. So, and we went on. I rode this infertility roller coaster for close to a decade. We struggled with conceiving after we lost our daughter. 2 years later, we were able to conceive our daughter, Isabella. She's 7 years old now. And then we wanted to grow our family, and we continued to struggle. We had 2 more early term miscarriages. And so my OB, who we're bonded for life, I love him dearly. I respect him. But he was like, I cannot see you suffer through any more pain. IVF was the shiny solution. And it didn't work for us. It should have worked because everything was right. I had plenty of eggs retrieved. We had genetically tested embryos, but it didn't work. And so my husband and I made the very difficult decision, not knowing this could be the end of the road for us. We wanted to grow our family, but we just knew we could not stretch ourselves emotionally, mentally, physically, financially anymore. And the doctors too. The IVF industry is $1 billion industry. I was at one of the best clinics in the country, and it just didn't work. And I always intuitively knew that it wasn't going to work for me. And I think when the RE kind of gave us no further options, gave up on us in a way, is when I stood up for myself, when I took my power back in a way, and when my true healing started, I think, because for a very long time, I was carrying around a lot of guilt, a lot of shame. I felt that something was wrong with me, that my body had let me down, that my body had let my husband down, that we had suffered through so much pain. It's not that I didn't love myself, but I didn't trust my body. I didn't trust myself. And so when there were no more options for me, I learned again how to trust my body, how to love my body. And that took a lot of work. That took a lot of healing. Losing our daughter so tragically was so painful. And it's very hard to deal with because society doesn't deal with death very well. It's a very primal thing to lose children. And it goes against the natural order of life. And there's a lot of silence around it because it's a very scary thing. God forbid it happens to you. But then when it does happen to you, there's not much support there to guide you and help you. I felt so alone after this happened. And there was a lot of people around me to support me and love me, but not in the way that I truly needed. I felt very alone because there's a lot of silence surrounding this and so much work to be done. There's a huge gap between healing and medicine. And this is something that I've discussed with my OB as well. There just has to be more support there for women, for men, for partners, for families in general to heal, to keep moving forward.
Tell me more about the healing that you did and the work that you did to learn to trust your body again.
There were decisions that were made unknowingly, things I couldn't control when we lost our daughter, things that happened in the hospital. It all happened so quickly. I had a placental abruption. So a lot of decisions had to be made quickly in order to save my life. And so I feel like I didn't really have the proper tools to process anything, or I didn't really have the information. I felt like a lot of things were kept from me. So I felt like I wasn't able to hold her, for example. I carry that with me as well. That was very traumatic for me. So I had to forgive myself of that because I hold her memory every day, and her siblings now know her name, know her birthday. We keep her memory alive. And I think that I always felt that we were going to forget her. And so when I went back to do the work, a lot of it really interesting things happened. I felt like the day that she died, a part of me died with her, but another part of me opened up. And I realized that even though she wasn't here in the physical form, there are many ways to connect with her. Signs, interesting things. Some people might say they're weird, some might say they're scary, but anytime I've really needed something from her, an answer, she's always given that to me. She came to me in a dream that evening as well, and she told me everything was going to be okay, Mommy. And I can hear that all the time in my head. Whenever I need comforting words, I think about that, and I remember that, and I know that she's here guiding me in this work, because this whole work, becoming a coach, trying to help women process their trauma to go on and continue on their journey to have children, is a leap of faith for me. All of this is very much out of my comfort zone. Even having this discussion with you, it's an act of vulnerability. I am telling you my darkest secrets, things I've kept hidden from my closest family. And here I am speaking with you tonight so that maybe someone out there hearing my words will feel less alone, will feel supported, will feel understood, will hear those two important words, me too. I know what that feels like. I'm so sorry that you've had to go through this. But the work that I've done, I had to, in order to work through the trauma and the pain, I had to feel it and I had to sit with it. And I think a lot of yoga and breath work helped me with that. A lot of meditation. Meditation it's very difficult. I think it's very difficult for anyone. Even people who have been meditating for years and years will say it's probably one of the hardest things to do, to sit with your thoughts, to sit with your emotions, to sit with whatever it is that you're feeling and not judge them, but allow them and surrender to them in a way. And like I mentioned to you, even though our IVF journey was over, my journey to try and conceive another child was not over. And so, coupled with meditation, I did a lot of visualizations. I had mantras. I think subconsciously, I was blocking my own blessings in a way, because in my mind, I would say, okay, we're going to go in for this next IVF transfer. I'm not going to get my hopes up because maybe it's not going to work out, or it probably won't work out because this is what always happens. Like, everything has to be so hard for me. Nothing ever comes easy. Everything that I truly want, it never comes. So these were the programs I had in my mind. And this is how I had subconsciously, my body was already protecting itself, right? And my body was in fight or flight. My body was always going to protect itself. And stress hormones are in direct conflict with the hormones needed to produce a pregnancy. So I never understood that. So understanding just that, I think, was very important. But also, I had a friend of mine who I worked with in finance, and she had left and had opened up her own spin cycle. And she'd also studied yoga and had traveled all over the world. And she said, okay, let's come up with a mantra. And I said, okay, my baby is coming. And she said, no, reframe. Your baby is here. And that was really important for me, because I began to think of it differently. And I began to allow myself through these visualizations to let my mind wander. Like, what was my vision of the future? What did I truly want in my depths of my soul? I wanted another child. And so I allowed myself to picture it. What would this baby look like? What would my belly look like? Would I be rubbing my belly? What would I want to eat? What would my baby look like? And I had the same visions come over and over. And it was always a boy. Like, it would come to my mind, a boy, and I didn't stop it or force it. I would just let it. And it was always a vision of a little baby boy in that pre-toddler stage, when they're just learning how to walk and they're a little wobbly. And he was always walking through a big field. And I would always have the same vision. And then it would be fast forwarding to when he was grown and he was getting married and we were walking down the aisle. And instead of pushing and saying, no, don't think that, because then it won't happen. No, I did the exact opposite. I began to let myself feel those emotions of what it would feel like. I felt joy. I felt grateful, awe. I felt excitement. And this is what I began to do, play these little mental movies. And it's so funny that maybe 4 or 5 months after we stopped IVF, I got pregnant naturally and we have a son. And it's even crazier that we moved out to the suburbs and we have a huge backyard. And a couple months ago, I realized that vision that I had, we have a huge backyard and he's doing that wobbling thing where you think he's going to fall over. And I had a moment of, oh my God, this worked. Like, this happened. This is real. And I have to credit myself. Yes, Karla, you are powerful. Yes, Karla, you had this intuition. Yes, you were able to connect your mind, your body, and your soul. And yes, you were able to call this baby down. And it's just so powerful. And I think that a lot of women want to address their fertility issues as it's only being something medical. Oh, okay, my FSH or my AMH or my hormones are off, or I have endo, or I have PCOS, and those are all real problems, absolutely, that that your doctors can prescribe medicine, or even I believe more in a holistic route, but your mind is, I think, almost equally as important, if not more, really, because your mind is so powerful. And I think we hold back for fear. I know I don't necessarily like to describe myself as a type A personality, but I felt like I could control the situation. And clearly, I couldn't. I couldn't control what was going to happen. I could only surrender to it. I could do what I needed to do my part wholeheartedly. And then I had to let the universe or God or whatever it is that you believe do the rest, and believe that I would be supported and that my greater good would be served. Absolutely.
I thought about the power of affirmations when you were talking. My baby is here instead of my baby is coming. That is such a shift right there.
Yeah.
And then there's so much power in positive thinking. And there's so many times where when modern medicine can't figure out what's wrong with you, they're like, oh, it's just in your head. Maybe part of it is. Maybe you should think of it that way and think about ways that you can influence that, because we are spiritual beings. We have this whole spiritual side that so many of us repress, right? We don't fully take into account. We have religion, and I'm a religious person, but there's a spiritual side too. And it's like a circle, and we need to fill all of it, not just the little pieces of it, right? We are so much stronger and more capable. I'm trying not to quote movies here than we think we are. And if we believe that something's not going to work, we will find a way to have it not work. And if we believe that something is going to work, we find a way to make it work. And then I thought about how much we store emotions in our body. And I was thinking that when you had your stillbirth, how many emotions you probably trapped right around all of the birthing organs are, which made it a lot harder for subsequent pregnancies. Taking that time to really dig in and do the emotional and the spiritual work, look where you're at.
Yeah.
It's amazing that you then had that realization, wait, this is my son and this is our backyard. That was just so beautiful.
Yeah, I have it on video because I was taking a video of him, and then I was like, oh my God, this was my vision. This was my vision come to life. We are so powerful. And I think maybe even as women, we're taught to dim our light in a way and not feel so powerful, because powerful can come off as, I don't know, bossy or aggressive, or all of those negative words or characterizations. But going back to what you said, yes, there was a lot of stored trauma. And that is actually your second chakra. Your second chakra is where you store trauma, guilt. And that is where your uterus is. When all of that energy is stuck, we're all energetic beings, right? So I did a lot of breath work specific for that area, like a lot of visualizing moving energy in that area, then working on pulling it out and breathing it out. But it was just simple meditation. And it wasn't like I was doing anything specifically. I would listen to random meditations on Insight Timer, which I think is great. It's free. I highly recommend it. They have so many wonderful free meditations on there. My children actually listen to meditations at night too. So we've been able to get our children to have healthier sleeping habits as well through meditation. When I was going through all my struggles as well, I would ask my reproductive endocrinologist, my RE, questions. I felt in a way that I was annoying him. Maybe it's a sense that when you're in that position, you want to be the perfect patient. You want to ask questions, but not too many questions, because you don't want to annoy them, because they're very busy and they have another patient coming in right after you. And you don't want to seem desperate, even if you are feeling desperate in that moment, because you've literally pinned your hopes on thousands and thousands of dollars and hopes and dreams of a family on this process. And I think that's too where, not where we go wrong, but where we need to tune in more to our intuition. As I mentioned in the beginning of our discussion, I intuitively knew that it wasn't going to work. I felt like it wasn't going to work. And I felt like I didn't have to do this but I did because I trusted my doctors and I listened to my doctors. But the doctors aren't all knowing. Doctors aren't God. Doctors don't really dive into your case so specifically. They have so many patients, right? And so I think it's important for women to be their own best advocates in this position as well, and to not feel like you're bothering your doctor or asking too many questions. This is your body, this is your life, this is your family, this is your future.
I think we know our bodies best, right?
Absolutely.
They don't know our bodies. We know our bodies. We know when something doesn't feel right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that we have to trust more in ourselves. We have to trust more in our intuition. I think that once our analytical mind starts kicking in, which it does very young in age, we lose that. But there's something very powerful of that. And I think that at 41, it was like a full circle for me. I wasn't going to stop until I was ready to stop. And I wasn't going to let any diagnosis or what any doctor tell me that there was no other option for me until I came to a point where I said, there's no more option for us, or we should stop trying, or whatever it is. It's such a testament to this type of work, this mindset, that it's a hope is such a powerful thing. When you really hope and believe in hope, I think so many things are possible, really, in all different places in our life. But speaking right now of fertility or infertility, I think if you can keep hope alive, then I think that whatever it is that you really want and the life that you've always dreamed of, it can be yours. Absolutely.
Sounds like you need to show up and do the work, though. You need to do the work to heal yourself if you are having issues, which for me, it's realizing my fertility issues came from past trauma. And we all have trauma. We all store trauma in our bodies. We all need to do the work to release that. And there are so many different methodologies for releasing stored trauma. I can do another podcast episode on that alone for any listeners out there. But taking the time to listen to yourself and to trust yourself is very important. It sounds like that was very pivotal for you in your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I needed to reclaim my power, reclaim trust in myself and in my body. That took work. It's a very difficult thing to do that work. It's painful. I think a lot of us are taught very young to not only suppress it, but not talk about it, not sit with it, not feel it, just to maybe push it aside or stuff it down, or there's no one really to help you work through it or recognize it really. And it's a very difficult thing. It takes courage. It really does. But I think that when you can move through that and get to the other side, so many beautiful things. My daughter has certainly brought her two siblings. I think the pain that I've gone through has given me a new purpose in my life at 42 years old. That, of course, I would have wanted my daughter here with us. She would be 9 years old. And to even say that kind of chokes me up a little bit because she's not here. But I know that even holding her for such a short time, I would never take that back. She has taught me so many things, and she was only here for such a short time. And I think about what life would have been like if she was here. And every year for her birthday, we, wherever we are, throw flowers into whatever body of water. First, it was the Hudson River for a long time. Now we're out in the suburbs and we have this beautiful little stream in our backyard. And we went down on March 19th. And I went with our daughter, Isabella, because Leo, he's too young to go down, but he knows who she is. And we threw flowers for her. And my daughter, Isabella, is the first time she spoke to her. And she sent her a beautiful little message. And I think that death is so scary, dealing with the pain of that. If you give it its space and you have the courage to maybe to reframe it, even if, like I said, even if she's not here in the physical, I still feel her very much around me and guiding me and supporting me. And I think that's a beautiful thing too. Everybody's healing is very different. Our daughter, she passed away 9 years ago. It's still a scar that's easily opened. It's still very raw. I don't think that will ever change. I do think there's a beauty in what she's taught me. I do think there's a lot of people who could use a helping hand through this. I remember for a very long time feeling very alone And I certainly think that there's no reason for people to suffer in silence. There's no reason for it. There's so many women, like we discussed, 1 in 4 pregnancies end in miscarriage. 1 in 8 couples suffer through infertility. So many people will suffer through PTSD. I have on my Instagram, my younger sister and I are very close. She went to Morocco recently and we couldn't find her. She was at a writing retreat. She's a writer. She had told me she had a dream, a scary dream the night before, and we had been speaking through voice notes. And so she would check in with me every day. And I hadn't heard from her that day. And her boyfriend sent me a message like, I hadn't heard from your sister. And I immediately began to panic. I thought the worst because underneath the healing, there's still the trauma. And this healing is a daily practice. It's something that I work on constantly because if something so traumatic happened, I feel like something else traumatic is going to happen. So I have to work on that every day to say, no, my past is not my present and my present is not my future. We are okay. And she was just fine. She just had spotty internet service. That's how your brain can spiral when you've had trauma and you're still working on it. I think everyone's healing process it's different and it ebbs and flows. And sometimes it hits you like a tidal wave and other times it's manageable. It's definitely a daily practice.
Going through the fertility journey can tear couples apart. What held you guys together?
Interesting question.
Sorry, I went a little deep there.
No, that's great. That's great. I love deep. It's funny that you brought that up because I remember when we lost our daughter, someone said this to me in a very kind of, I don't know, it's just hit me very odd that they said, don't let this break you two apart. This person said to me. And I just was like so struck by that. Is that what you're telling me right now? I need to be concerned about my partner in this moment. But absolutely, grief can certainly do that. And I think that my husband and I have really learned how to communicate with one another and support one another. There were times where I would be broken ball of mess and he would come home and literally pick me off the ground. And there were times where he broke down and I would feel like, okay, now it's my time to step up and support him because he needs support as well. We really had a very good support system for one another. We balance each other. We communicate with one another. He wrote this beautiful poem for her. He was there with me every step of the way. And it only brought us closer and it only helps us to appreciate more what we have now, the family that we've built, the challenges that we've faced together, but always together. There wasn't a decision that was made where both of us weren't in agreement, where both of us hadn't spoken about it, where both of us didn't feel loved and supported by one another. I think that was very important.
How did you keep from becoming obsessive over fertility? It sounds like you were still making sure you had quality of life in other areas.
Absolutely. I see on certain groups that I'm on that a lot of the emotional labor and the physical labor of IVF in particular is put on the woman, right? And I think my husband was awesome in the fact that he stepped in and he was like the nurse. I'm deathly afraid of needles. So me doing this 2 rounds was like, I would have never imagined, but he went with me when they went through all the training. He did all the preparations of the medications. He gave me all the injections. Like he was on top of it with me and he was there with me every step of the way. And I don't think I would have gone through it without him. I think that was very important because you're going through so much emotionally, mentally, physically, the hormones. You're getting just shot up with tons of hormones. Can you imagine? I don't know. Have you been through IVF?
No, but I've been through the birth control and then the first part of pregnancy and the postpartum. I can't imagine going through that amount of hormones.
Yeah. And then to have it not work. Do you know what I mean? Go through all of that and then have it not work. Devastating. Absolutely devastating. I hate to say like all things happen for a reason, but I certainly think that there are lessons that we all have to learn in life. And I certainly don't think this trauma, the challenges that we had to go through made me stronger, but it made me a different person. And I think I'm a better person for it. I don't regret any of it. And like I said, I feel so lucky and grateful that we do have a happy ending. We have our family complete with our dog, and I'm just so grateful.
I'm a dog lover too, so I'm gonna smile at that. What would you tell your past self going through this?
I would tell myself that it would all be worth it in the end, that you would find your way home back to yourself, that you're way more powerful than you could have ever imagined, that the doctors aren't the be all end all, that you will have the life that you are worthy of having and the life that you've always dreamed of, but you have to surrender to it. I used to surf when I was younger and didn't have kids, and it was so much fun. And I've always been into yoga and surrendering. They say that a lot in yoga practice. And I was like, what the hell does that mean? I'm like trying to like analytically figure it out. I asked a friend of mine and she said, surrender to me means let go or be dragged. And finally it clicked in my mind in so many different ways in your life. She was struggling with her yoga studio having to shut down during the pandemic. I was struggling with trying to force IVF to work, and it wasn't going to work for me. I think I was meant to learn that and meant to find my way back to my own body and to my own self and to do the healing and do the work to bring me to my new purpose, really, to take me down this path, to help women feel safe and heard, and to provide a safe space for us to talk about the things that most people don't want to talk about, to break the silence, to give our pain a voice so that we can heal collectively. I think it's all about healing and supporting one another. And I have to say, I've been talking about IVF very negatively, and I know so many people that it's worked for. I think that's fantastic. But I will say the one thing that I picked up from IVF, and it was during the pandemic, was the support group. I will never forget the women in the support group. It was amazing because the clinics would only allow you to do it in person. And then during the pandemic, of course, everybody was stuck at home. So we did it on Zoom. And it was the most amazing, supportive thing I didn't know I needed, that I desperately needed. I will remember these women forever. I was rooting for them. I was emotionally invested in their stories. There was a sharing of information, a sharing of stories. There was tears. There was celebrations. There was vulnerability. There was so much good stuff there that I think that we need more of. So that is another goal of mine, to recreate that feeling of community that's so desperately needed.
I was wondering if that's what you were envisioning with your practice, is having that kind of community group coaching. That's beautiful.
Absolutely. I'm doing one-on-one coaching, group community. Nothing helped me more to heal than to be surrounded by people who were struggling with exactly what I was struggling with. I went on a retreat, and it was not a retreat for anything specific. It was a yoga retreat that my best friend took me to because I was suffering and she didn't know what to do to help me. It was amazing. It was so healing. So I'm really wanting to recreate that as well. To have these circles of healing is what I envision, and also being out in nature, doing yoga, maybe some surfing too. So that's what I'm working on in 2024. We got a lot of things we're cooking up.
Amazing. Tell me about your ideal client. Fertility issues. What else?
There's a lot of fertility coaches out there that really specialize in helping you get pregnant. But like I said to you, I feel like the mental part, the mindset part is just as important. I don't really see many people speaking of that in the fertility space. So my ideal client would be someone who has suffered a miscarriage or is suffering through infertility or stillborn pregnancy loss and is still desperately wanting to conceive a child. I think it takes a special amount of courage to step out on that ledge and jump into the unknown again. You've felt the pain of losing a child, and to gather up the courage again, to step out onto the ledge again and maybe feel that pain again. That's my ideal client. I want to be that hand for you to hold, to support you in your journey to conceiving your rainbow baby.
I wish I knew about this when I was pregnant with my third kid, the one that was a surprise, because there were so many times I was telling my husband, I don't know if I can handle another miscarriage.
Yeah.
I had postpartum depression. I wasn't mentally prepared to be pregnant again, especially that close together. They are 20 months apart.
Oh my God. Wow. They're
Yeah.
Irish.
The other one is 2 months apart. And it's such a relief to close that chapter, because you have to surrender so much to getting pregnant, to everything that can happen with pregnancy. Your body does all kinds of crazy things during pregnancy. It's doing hopefully the right things, but it doesn't feel right. And the worse you feel, the better things are going, apparently.
I know, it's counterintuitive.
And you don't know when you're going to give birth, when you're going to go into labor. There's so much you have to surrender to. And I'm a huge planner, so it's very stressful for me. And the times where all of a sudden you're hungry and you're like, but I just ate and I just left the house. What am I going to do? And you have to pack all the snacks for yourself like you're a toddler. And there's so much surrender that needs to happen. So I really love that you talked about that. And then there's another part that I want to touch on from way in the beginning that you talked about us having so much power because our bodies are the ones housing this fetus and giving life. The male gives so little compared to how much we give and we provide. And it shows how much nurturing and creative energy we naturally have and how much we should be tapping into those things. Do you want to tell us any more about your programs and then how to find you if we would like to follow your work?
Like I said, we have a lot of things coming in 2024, but you can follow me. It's Karla, Karla.Levit. There's my Instagram where I've been pouring my heart out, being very vulnerable, which is very new to me. I've shared some things. I share my story and some other things about my family. And I'm going to start putting stuff out about my program specifically. But right now we do one-on-one coaching. If you're interested, you can send me a private message or a DM. I'm working on putting together my support group on Facebook. It's actually You Are Not Alone. It has my name there too. So if you search in Facebook, you can find me there. And then there'll be more information about my online course and a retreat coming in 2024 too. Mostly Instagram is where you should find me.
It was an absolute pleasure having Karla on the show today. Her vulnerability, passion, and insights truly touched us all. For everyone wanting to stay connected with Karla and follow her inspiring journey, please make sure to follow her on her platforms. She continuously shares valuable content and offerings that are not to be missed. As we wrap up this episode, I'm already excited for next week's conversation. We'll be diving into the art of going with the flow as a mom, embracing mindfulness, and appreciating the things in life we've longed for and now have. It's going to be a deeply enriching episode offering perspectives and practices that can transform our daily lives. Join us as we explore these heartfelt themes tailored specially for moms looking to find balance and joy in their journey. Until then, keep nurturing your heart and the hearts of those you love. See you next week. Thank you for joining us on this week's refreshing wellness discussion. I am Autumn Carter, your guide through the seasons of motherhood, and I hope you found inspiration and valuable insights during our time together. If you resonated with the topics we explored today and want to continue your wellness journey, I invite you to follow me on Instagram at Mom's Wellness in every season. There you'll discover a wealth of ongoing wellness tips specifically curated for moms like you. Sharing our podcast with others is an act of caring, and I invite you to spread the word by sharing, subscribing, and leaving a review wherever you enjoy your podcast. Your support is deeply valuable to us and enables us to reach more mothers who are seeking transformation and empowerment. If you have a specific topic you'd like us to cover in more detail, or if you're interested in a free coaching consultation, don't hesitate to reach out. You can send me a direct message on Instagram or visit my website, wellnessinEverySeason.com, to send an email. I'm here to support you on your wellness journey. Thank you again for being part of our vibrant community. I am genuinely excited to connect with you, hear your stories, and continue this important discussion in the weeks to come. Until next time, remember to prioritize your well-being, embrace every season with grace, and always strive for wellness in every aspect of your motherhood journey. Take care, and I can't wait to catch up with you soon.